Hello, hello. How's everyone doing?
Good.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for being here. Um, hey, Cameron, Kelsey, thank y'all for being here. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started, and then people will join us. Elle, I'm going to make you the host. Cool. Well, I want to start off with a little story for y'all. So when I was an undergrad, I remember I went to Marfa with some friends. And on the way back from Marfa, we were driving from Marfa to Austin, which is like a 9-hour drive. I remember I think the passenger was like, hey, we should totally listen to Kids Bop, ironically. Because that would be really fun, right? To just like listen to Kids Bop, you know, that thing that we grew up like not wanting to listen to because it was really cheesy and they were doing like top 40 songs. And so we listened to one song and I was like, haha, you know, this is fun. And then we listened to the whole album for like the hour that it existed on us. And I remember being like, you know, it was ironic at first, but now we're like listening to it. You know, it's it's not ironic anymore. But it was funny because it kind of reminded me, it made me think of like, I don't know, who actually likes this? Are we just listening to it because it's funny? But like, if it's been an hour, is it still funny? And so I was thinking, it's like, you know, maybe the person driving really liked it but couldn't say anything, or like I didn't like it, I didn't say anything, or like everybody was kind of like didn't really know what to say. And so it kind of felt like the Emperor's New Clothes, but like we were all naked and like nobody was talking about it. So I bring this up because I feel like this is actually a way my practice is like a method or an opening up of dialogue to address the Kids Bop in our lives. The songs that we've been singing our whole lives that were given to us by our parents, that are just our own kids versions that get to be these really fun, playful things, but then like end up becoming how we actually live our lives. And so my practice wants to learn how to say how we really feel about these songs that we've been singing of the past, and to make sure that's what we want to sing or not. So my name's Connor. I think everybody here knows me, but in case you don't, my name's Connor Walden. I'm an artist in residence with the Seattle Residency Project. I'm really excited to be talking about my piece, Emulating Matt, which is a part of the exhibition Please Stay Home, which is the online exhibition hosted by the Seattle Residency Project. So thank you all so much for being here. And I'm going to work to speak about it as much as I can so that we can get to questions and conversations. But here we go. So my practice begins in a state of ambivalence, which is a space when we feel discomfort from having more than one feeling about something. According to Jung, this is a space that invigorates creativity because the tension causes resonance. The character Matt that I created a few years ago, he came out of a space of ambivalence. He was a splitting of my Christian identity to wrestle with the ambivalence that I felt towards certain aspects of my Christian identity, such as charity, evangelism, piety, charisma. These are just some of the traits that I found hard to be totally sincere in as a Christian, especially in college and in a liberal town. So I created Matt to be my alter ego so that Connor could ironically do something while Matt was earnestly doing something, to truly feel and experience what I was doing. After several Matt appearances, I decided it was best to kill him off so that I could reintegrate the earnest side of this identity, so that I could know really what does it mean for me to be a Christian, including all of the skewed and troubled and wretched parts of this identity. So now the spirit of Matt lives through me as aspiration, inspiration, and perspiration, which it's really odd to ironically jump rope because you realize pretty quickly that you start to sweat, and your body, even though like you're mentally thinking like I'm ironically doing this, like your body's like, no, actually you're really doing this now. It's not just irony. I'm like regrounded in my body now, and like it's actually me now. So I created a participatory performance thinking about how do I emulate Matt now that Matt has disappeared into heaven. And so I created this participatory performance that was called Emulating Matt that I did with my performance group. And this was a piece where I asked everybody in the group to come up with 2 dance movements in response to the question, who is the Christian you wish you could be? And this was a way to have an embodied response to question and consider, who's the Christian that I wish I could be? Who are the Christians in my life? What are they like? You know, who are the Christians, and what do we wish that they could truly be, instead of this really broken and painful and like really traumatizing identity that is, especially in the US, has been existing as. So this is actually like a really fun thing, and actually Cecilia is already wearing her headband, so I'm gonna join her here. So this is the first step was to don our headbands. But this is my paper one. If you didn't see, there are instructions with the piece on how to make yourself a headband. So there we go. It's kind of tightening in my curls a little bit, but that's all right. So basically, after having this participatory piece, I thought it would be really fun when we started thinking about this online exhibition. How in the world could I transfer this in-person group embodied participatory performance into an online platform, which is pretty much just what everybody's been dealing with how does the quarantine and like having to be on our computers really affect how we are able to think of who we are truly, and especially for people who are social beings when our social interactions have become flattened. So I decided to try to just transfer that onto the computer, and that's kind of what ended up coming out. So the goal for this piece was for people to feel moved and to feel like they could move. A lot with this piece in particular in my practice, it's a lot of me trying to get myself to do things that I find hard to do, like dancing silly, or dancing at all, or moving and getting out of my chair. And the hope is that if I feel this way, maybe some other people also feel this way, and that I could get us all to be moved a little bit. So I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the piece now. So the piece is a site-specific online installation, and it's written out as a set of instructions to really encourage and foster this movement that I was hoping people would have experienced just like I did. So it starts off with some words, some instructions. My friend Lucy here actually helped me. She is a professor, and she helped me with the pedagogical technique to use direct language as opposed to invitational language, in hopes that would be more encouraging and direct for how people can be involved. And so then I posed the question. I had a few Bible verses that I referenced and kind of paraphrased, and then just wanted to like both go from the inside to the outside to just imagine, because we have to basically imagine that we are social beings still right now, when it's so much on the computer, and just imagine what is it like to actually work out with somebody when that's like that and singing together are like the 2 worst things you could possibly do right now with the respiratory droplets that come out. So it was like, let's just imagine, it's great. And then I think after that was the instructions. So then I was like, one of the signature things about Matt is this headband. It's a halo. It's like a reminder to get into a different plane, to really consider not just like the bodily plane, but like also how does our head and our heart kind of combine in this act. And I made it in like these like origami instructions, because I loved origami growing up, as well as like making paper airplanes. And so I want to make it really simple, really fun, hand drawn, like a lot of origami books. So that was kind of the inspiration for that. The MP3 that's in here is actually, so it's a song that I think is by the artist Lauren Daigle, but then there's like this group called the Christian Workout Hits Group that remakes Christian worship songs to be workout songs, and they just kind of speed them up and then add some like EDM beats behind them, and they're actually like kind of fun and really cheesy. But this was by far the best one that I could find. And so I used that one and then added on top the instructions for the mat emulation. Yeah. And then I decided to really help foster this, and to show that, okay, try this again. So Cecilia taught me to be vulnerable and to help others feel like they can be vulnerable. I have to be vulnerable myself. And so I was like, all right, well, if I really want other people to do this, I'm going to actually have to do this and show people that it's okay. And so I did only one take. I was like, I'm only going to do one take for this video. And so I practiced, and I had my modern dance like in the back of my head when I was coming up with these moves. And to be honest, I forgot 2 of them while I was doing this. So 2 of them are totally improvised. But even just doing this and like hoping that other people would do this with me, it was really fun to realize, like, 1, it's fun, and 2, like, there were some of the moves that were like pretty like lyrical. It was like, I'm just giving things away, or I'm like reaching. But then I like did like a pelvic thrust, which is very sexual. But then I was thinking, like, can that be Christian? And like, how does that actually, like, why is that not like a Christian dance move, right? Like, why does that have to be like this super taboo like version of what it means to be a Christian? So I was like, well, I'm going to keep it in here. And actually, like, a lot of people ended up saying that was like their favorite one. And I don't know if it was just because it was like silly watching me do a pelvic thrust in my room, or if it was actually like a fun thing to do. I don't know. But so I decided to let that be like a video that you had to click onto, because thanks, Dad. It was a video that when it was on the actual screen, like, that was like what everybody went to first. It was just like, it's so clickbaity. It's like, I just want to watch the video. But the hope was that when everything was like focused on the text and the word, that would be like a portal into whatever else comes out of that. The last thing that I thought would be really great would be to have a store, to have a storefront, because it wouldn't be church if you weren't paying for something that was free. And so, because you can already download the MP3 on the website, but people can pay if they really want to for this MP3. Yeah, so I mean, that's like a pretty good overview, and that's kind of what I was feeling, and where I got to. So I'd love to just open it up for questions now. But thank you all so much for being here, and I just really appreciate y'all for taking the time.
Can we clap? Just because this feels like something we used to do before. Oh yeah, that's better. Yeah.
Connor, why the name Matt?
Why the name Matt? So it's short for Matthew, which is the first book of the gospel. It's the first gospel in the New
Short
Testament.
for Matilda too.
Sorry?
Short for Matilda too.
Sure, I don't know much about Matilda, actually, but I think Angie loves Matilda, right? Thanks for the question.
So why did you have Matt die? Why were you like done with that?
Yeah, so I mentioned this a little bit earlier, which was that for one, I wanted to kill off the splitting that I had done, and I wanted to be reintegrated and to have fully like what I was trying, what I couldn't do personally, but I could do in a character. I wanted to be able to do personally again, and in a way that was real and true for me. But then also I really liked the idea of Matt becoming this idea that was like larger than life, because he died so young. And so it's like whoever Matt is and was only there for such a short period that like we can just constantly interpret and like think about who Matt was. And we can emulate someone who was perfect because he didn't live longer than 24 years. You know, it's like, it's really easy to make someone larger than life when they didn't have the rest of their life to like really screw everything up. But Yeah, so there you go.
I'm curious about the reintegration process, either symbolically or like practically, as you're talking about he died, but then this reintegration happened.
Yeah, so I'm sure I could like know a little bit more like psychologically how that happens, and maybe like if that's like a real thing and how that like actually happens. But I'd say like from my experience and personally, um, I mean, Matt was this disintegration from my experience in Austin of trying to live as a Christian, but also realizing that like I didn't actually live or believe in the same way that most like Christians did in Austin. So actually like people made a lot of assumptions immediately about who I was and like what I believed just because I wore that label. And so this disintegration was one way for me to cope with that and to kind of like think, how do I actually process this? And so then the reintegration was a chance for me to really own that and to like think and speak and believe like who I truly am. And if I, and to be honest, I don't actually know like where I stand on like if I identify as a Christian or not right now, and like if that even matters. But that's like kind of like the reintegration was like whenever I decide whatever I want to be, that it's going to be like my choice and my decision, and it's not because of like what somebody else assumes that to be. And like I'm just going to have to deal with whatever those consequences are either way, like if I decide to be or not to be. So actually during Lent this year, I gave up identifying as a Christian, to be this Lenten practice of like, you know, how, like, is that really like identifying, is that really bringing me closer to God ultimately? Like, is that really like making me love other people in the way that I believe Jesus calls me to love people? And how is that not doing that? And that's just been a big thing that I've been wrestling with here in Seattle, especially, like how to own that. So, or to not own that.
I have a question. I was interested that you said Matt died and ascended to heaven. And using ascension language, to me, for those that don't know, I'm in seminary, and so I think about a lot of these things. And it's a Platonic idea that heaven is above. Heaven to then inspire from this idea place. So I wonder, did the spirit of Matt descend upon you in this experience? And what does that mean for you?
That's a great question. I'm glad I have a seminarian here to push this side of it. Thanks, Kyle. I mean, I would say there is some like that language. I do like the idea of like the descending upon, because like Matt lives in the ethereal Platonic realm right now. It's like purely an idea now. And even what we have left of Matt are like photos and videos that are like just remnants of like to remind us who Matt was and who Matt is. But like who Matt truly is now is like just an idea. At least in like this like Greek way that we can like somehow separate ideas from like reality. And so I'd say, yeah, like when I was trying to embody and emulate Matt in the movements, I would say the spirit of Matt descended upon me, but I mean, that's like some pretty strong language that I'm not sure, like, I don't know how I feel about that language actually, but I like the idea of like, I mean, it's a nice like visual language to like to accompany like what happened and how I felt. But it's basically, I mean, I think of Matt as like an icon now, where it's like purely like a portal into which I can like explore the qualities of Matt, but like not who Matt like really was. And so I'm not sure actually like of the spiritual and mystical component of like Matt descending upon me, but I'm gonna have to think about that one. I like that. Thanks, Kyle.
I have a question, Connor. I'm just curious. Can you speak to the difference between this version of emulating Matt versus the one that happened with the performance group? And just like, what did you learn something? What did you learn differently, or I don't know? Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that question. I mean, I would say the one thing about doing it in a group setting and with people, which I forget what that's even like, was that it was really fun. For one, I mean, it was just like, it was amazing seeing what people came up with, for one, and like how we like were able to interact in like this really goofy, silly way. I mean, it was like us in this preschool room, right? Like wearing headbands and like dancing together and like doing these weird moves. And so I'd say like now in the form that it exists, I would say it's different. It's not the same for sure, but actually I feel pretty good in the sense that like it elicited a very similar feeling when I actually did it by myself. And especially when I was like, what if I was imagining other people doing this with me? And like, again, this is just like a reality and like something that we're dealing with quarantine and like being all separated right now by social distancing. But it becomes more like, yeah, it's more of like it's more imaginative than it is like realistic in like the sense of like being with people. Yeah, and then it's just like totally different, like how we like how I go about introducing people to Matt, introducing people to the instructions, and like what that actual mode is. Because I realized I just had to be way more clear with language, as opposed to in person. Like especially if there was a slip of the tongue, I could like fix it pretty quickly, and like I didn't have to be totally like. And then I also had like all my nonverbal gestures and like my laughing and my smirking that probably happened the entire time. Like that doesn't happen. You don't see my face on the computer, you know. So like, how do I make sure that what I want to say is coming across the way that I want to, purely through text?
Hey, I have a follow-up question to Cecilia's. So participatory work is about the audience and like reading the audience and taking care of the audience. And so I'm curious how you felt when it was like mediated by the screen and you actually can't have direct feedback from the audience or even see how they're participating.
Yeah, that's a great question. It was actually really, really good for me as someone who likes to do participatory works. Can you all hear me? Okay. Cool. It said internet is unstable. But I realized like a lot of my participatory works I'm there for. And so it was actually really good for me to totally let go of control in the sense of like, if people do it or not, I mean, it's like totally up to them. Like in person, there's like this, it becomes way like the power dynamic kind of is there, and like it can be as invitational as I want it to be, but like the fact that I'm there and like if they're my friends, like how do they feel like they can really like participate or not participate in this moment? But like with this, it was really good to just like go and be like, I'm happy with like my experience with it, and I hope other people get to experience that too. But if they don't want to like do that, that's like totally cool. I mean, that's like totally their prerogative. And so, but I would say that like when I've asked people afterwards if they moved, like I would say that it like meant a lot when I heard that they like either like bobbed their head or like actually did it or like felt any sort of like movement when listening to the song. So I can't say that I was like totally detached from the desire to know that people were participating, but it was good to let go of that and just be okay with letting it loose, if you will. Think so.
I have another follow-up. Oh, I can. My other follow-up really fast. Connor, did you watch yourself while you took video, or did you? You know what I mean? Did you see yourself while you took video? That's my last question.
Gosh, I'm really not. That's a good question. I mean, we could probably all watch the video again and pay attention to where my eyes are going the entire time to really know the answer to that one. But I think I was avoiding making eye contact with myself because I felt kind of ridiculous. And like I was okay doing the movements without a camera on me, like that wasn't a big deal. But as soon as I knew I was being watched, I was kind of like, there was a little bit more of like a guard that I had put up. So, but I'd say like right now, like while we're doing this, like I've probably been looking at myself more than other people while I'm talking because I know I'm getting that feedback.
Hey, Connor, did you see that Cassie submitted a question on the chat?
Yes, thank you, Cassie. Oh man, oh look at the time. So this is a great question, a question that we've all been wrestling with in the Seattle residency project together, and Elle's been really pushing this, and it's a big question I get usually with this piece, which means I should probably answer it. So the question is, who is your intended audience for this piece? Christians, comma, non-Christians, question mark. So I'd say, I mean, this is something I'm just working through in my practice generally right now a lot. So I appreciate the question, and maybe we'll discover together right now more of what I'm doing. But I would say that the muse for this piece, if you will, like the people that I had in my mind were the Christians that I know and care about and love and would hope that they would get something out of this by readdressing what does it mean to hold this Christian label? And how could I let this be liturgical in that sense? Like that if they followed through with this, what could they learn? And again, that was also for myself, thinking about that. But then I knew that this piece would then exist in a not necessarily a non-Christian platform, but like in a platform where like all people will see the piece. And so for me, I'm also just really fascinated by just how so many people experience work that talks about Christianity in particular, or just religion. That, I mean, even just Christians is such a nuanced thing. I mean, if there are certain Protestants realizing that I was asking people to move, you know, in order to understand God, would probably be like, what are you doing, dude? But then like maybe another Christian would be like, hell yeah, let's totally move. But then for non-Christians, I mean, yeah. I don't know. I mean, frankly, I like, I hate even using these words, Christians and non-Christians. But I recognize that that's like something I'm like addressing in this piece. And yeah, you can like sense my discomfort even right now with like trying to answer this question. So I could just keep talking and until the time runs out. But I say the hope was that even non-Christians could approach this work and think about the Christians that are in their lives, or just the idea of Christianity, and to think more critically also like, and this is also because for me, like my experience in Seattle is like, as soon as I tell someone I'm a Christian, it's like I have like an uphill battle now. And like, it's like I have to like prove all these things that I'm not because of the assumptions that people make of what that means. And I recognize now that like I'm bringing that on too. And so the hope was that, I mean, this is all about me, right? I mean, like all of our work is about like ourselves, but it's like, I want people who are not Christian to not see me as just a Christian, or to see me even as just like an assumed Christian, and what that even means. And vice versa with like my Christian friends, to assume that like we have the exact same beliefs and like the same ideologies and like morals, just because we like hold the same label. So basically just addressing the nuance and recognizing that we are all humans and we're all doing our best and trying to figure out what our identities are and how do we not get stuck in the box that our identities have, and a whole other can of worms. But what does it mean when your identity has power? But we'll address that later. All right, Cecilia, I see that you, nope, that's a private message. So I guess you don't. All right, I'm getting a lot of private messages here. So unless y'all want these to be public, I will leave them as private. Does anybody else have any questions?
So Connor, did you answer, or when you first explained this, I'm sorry, I'm kind of messing with Sasha a little bit, so I apologize, but what was the reason you chose to do Matt as your art piece in this forum and in this way? Did you already answer that, or can you answer why did you choose that to represent your art for this project?
Can you clarify? I'm gonna try to read. What's the question exactly? So
because you do lots of different art, and I'm curious as to what was it about Matt and this this art form that you decided this is what you wanted to do.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think, I mean, the two main things that I'm doing in my practice right now would be this emulating Matt, like performative stuff, participatory pieces, and then also like my sculptures that I'm also playing with, like the participatory elements of those possibly. But I was thinking, one, it would be really fun to make a participatory piece online and to think about performance on like an online platform. And the other that I thought, like my sculptures, one thing that I like is that people can either physically hold them or that like there's also space around that you can experience the work. And I felt like I felt like the challenge would be more exciting to work with Matt and performance as opposed to trying to make sculpture feasible through an online platform, which I think would also be interesting, but I was less interested in doing for this particular exhibition. Thanks, Mom. Are there any more questions? It looks like I was gifted unlimited minutes by Zoom, so I'll go till 12:45, and then we can y'all feel free to hop off whenever. But looks like we just earned time today.
Okay, I have human halo. I guess, like, is there any other significance about the headband that you might want to talk about?
Yes, thanks, Kelsey. So if you look on my website, it has a few of the pieces that I've done in the past with Matt. And so in Matt's final act of charity before he ascended in front of everybody, he was wearing a headband and all of his clothes. So then when he ascended into heaven, all that was left were his clothes on the ground, and they all became relics because how saints can be venerated and how their clothings and articles of clothing can become these icons in which we can then touch what is left to the earth, or maybe has descended from heaven into these objects. I'm looking at my brother here. And so the headband was what was left over for the exhibition that was through which the performance happened. And so Matt's headband, it was called the relic of Matt's headband. And so the headband itself has become this symbol, this icon for Matt, in that there's aspiration, inspiration, and perspiration in order to truly be Matt, who's all about fitness, spiritual fitness, and forgiveness and piety and all these other things. And so my work is pretty referential. So I was referencing another piece, pretty typical, but that would be the backstory behind this headband as well. So thanks, Kelsey. Does anybody else have any questions? Maybe some zingers, some hard ones that'll stump me, like Cassie's. I'd say Cassie, Elle, and I had like a 3-hour conversation about that question in particular. So I'm still working on that one.
I sent my question to you privately because I thought it was kind of a zinger, and I don't know. But anyway, but my question is the Matt piece evangelical? That's why I didn't send. Yeah. So yeah, if you can just answer that in like a minute, that's cool.
So that word just has so many connotations. Do you mean evangelical or evangelical? That was for Caleb. But really quickly, Cecilia, so evangelical could mean one, like, is it evangelical in the sense of like Christians that identify as evangelicals? Like, is it like that kind of a piece, like any sort of denomination? Is that what you mean?
No, like in terms of like,
I know, I'm just trying to get out of it.
you know, yeah, it's up to
Just
you.
kidding. Sorry, if you don't know, I crack a lot of jokes. So is it evangelical? I mean, again, it kind of depends on like how one would define something being evangelical. Like, what am I evangelizing? Like, is it a proselytization of like becoming a Christian by like saying the sinner's prayer? In that regard, I would say no, this is not an evangelical piece, because that is not the end goal. Now, is it like evangelical in the sense that like I believe in the like grace and love that's like behind the piece, and I want people to be able to fully know that for themselves in a way that can be transformative for their own spiritual journey, then yeah, absolutely. But I don't know if that would be what evangelical means for anybody except for me. And yeah.
Yeah, I think I got to that question because through Cassie's question, right? And I'm like, so what does it mean for non-Christians, right? Is it then evangelical? And not in the sense of like evangelizing what Christianity is to you, Connor's Christianity, you know? But that's what I was.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I would say, but I would say like what I'm offering is a question, and it's not like an answer. And so in the sense of like evangelism, like I'm not telling people that like my Christianity is like the way and the one true way, and like if you don't choose this answer, you are wrong. But I would say that like what I'm working through and what I'm trying to emulate and who Matt is are all just questions and explorations that I mean I guess that's also just like how I approach faith and spirituality, is that it's like a series of questions as opposed to like one answer that we're constantly trying to figure out how to get back to.
Thanks.
Thank you. Cool. Well, if anybody has any more questions, I would love it if you would email them to me or text me. Yeah, thank you all so much for being here. Really appreciate y'all. Love y'all. And yeah, thanks.
Well, and I was going to say thank you to all the artists too. It was really interesting looking at everybody's work. And so I see most of you on here, or all of you on here. And so I really enjoyed everybody's artwork. So thanks for putting that together.
That's my mom, everybody. So say hi to Kathy. And then my dad's in the shadows, if you want to say hi to him. Here he goes. He's wearing his headband too. Cool. Well, thank y'all so much. Elle, can you make me the host again?
Yeah, I'll make you host. Thank you also for doing this.
Totally.
Kyle's staying on there. Hey, Kyle.
Welcome. Please don your signature Matt's headband. Matt emulation number 1.
I will bring my heart before I lift my cares. I will lift my heart.
Matt emulation number 2.
I want to find you in every season, every moment. I will break my heart and take.
Matt emulation number 3.
All right. Cool. Well, thank y'all. I'm going to end the Zoom meeting, but yeah, thanks so much.
Bye, Connor.